Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's the old bear with the old bear's den of Bigfoot again. I got another story from you. This one's a three-part one. You'll like this one. Starts out by saying, my first encounter was the spring of 1993. I was 17. Leading up to this, friends would warn me, my brother, and parents not to go alone in this particular area, and don't stay past dark. In 93 was my second year there in Billings, Montana. Going to Riverfront Park was great, but sometimes you'd get this gut wrenching feeling of being watched and that there was something there in the brush. Well, that spring, it was early April, I went fishing. Mind you, there are two ponds, which I was at the larger one, more open. I never go back to the back pond just because of the feeling that I used to get. I went towards the north side past the footbridge, sat under this tree, and started fishing. Well, after about an hour, I started to get that feeling. It's about 9 o'clock in the morning, a little early. I heard some splashing across from the southeast side of the pond. I thought maybe it was the dogs from a close by house, but then it got really loud. I looked over and about pooped his pants. Fantasy just became reality. I knew what I was looking at, no doubt at all. It stood up, looked right at me, and I froze. I was no longer on top of the food chain, and I've seen a grizzly, several moose, and even a great white in California. This thing was a lot more intimidating, and it was about 75 feet away. It started to walk into the brush, looking back at me a few times. I got up, grabbed my gear, and walked backwards very cautiously. I could hear it snapping branches and the heavy footfalls. I got to the parking lot. This guy showed up, and I pointed and I asked if he too had saw it. And he told me he sees them there often. Often? Okay. I don't think I want to go fishing there anymore. The next day, I told some friends, and of course, no one believed me. My brother and a friend who was 6'7" went with me, and I showed him the spot to try to prove it to him. We saw huge footprints at about 4 to maybe 5 feet apart. Then our friend asked how tall it was, which I thought that I had explained that. He ended up having to get up on a stump, raise his hand next to this tree where this giant was, and we measured out 9 feet. It's about 4 foot wide, huge chest, cone-shaped head, hardly a neck, had the brow for ridge, flat nose, long arms, and covered in long auburn hair. I never returned back to that lake after that. Some people think that they don't inhabit that area, but they do. People report seeing them on the Yellowstone River, which runs along this park. There's not a lot of deer, but there's a lot of vegetation and fish to eat at the pond. And there are reports of people disappearing in that area. So I thought that would be it. Nope, I was wrong. In July of 1996, living back in my hometown of Riverton, Wyoming, and really close to the rendezvous site, which sits where the Big Wind and Little Wind rivers meet, there are 2 public ponds and 1 private pond. The south side is reservation, the north is public. Again, fishing. This time, me and my stepdad went fishing along the Big Wind. Now, before this day, I'd again get that feeling, but I'd shrug it off. I'll never do that again. There are some woods and brush and even 2 well-traveled paths that seemed out of place. Well, we went, and I got very nervous, but my stepdad said, nothing to worry about. It's all in your head. We cut down the side of the bank about 5 feet to the dry part of the river bend, and immediately when we got down there, we smelled feces. Lo and behold, there is this dug out under the bank nest looking thing. It went back about 10 feet and 5 foot high. littered with branches that seemed like it was packed down as if something big had laid on it, and lots of long and short black hairs. There are no bears in that area. We walked out to the river at this bend, and we both saw huge footprints in the mud. Our prints maybe sunk in about half an inch. These were about 3 inches deep. I measured them at 19 inches. Unlike the ones near Billings, those were 22 inches. Again, my gut, but my stepdad said not to worry. I started to scan the area, and across the river, about 200 feet behind a tree, I saw something swaying back and forth and peeking out from the tree. It was huge and all black. I pointed it out to my stepdad, and he saw it too. He asked, "What in the hell?" Didn't mean to use that language, but I apologize, people. I said, "That's a Bigfoot." "No," he said. "Well, there's no bears, elk, or moose in that area. What else could it be?" We left pretty quick for the car and went home. A few nights before, I would hear neighborhood dogs just go crazy. Well, on that night, about 1 a.m., the dogs were barking, then 3 of them started to whimper. I again smelled the feces. My window was cracked open. I saw a hand. I slowly rolled out of bed, and I saw it, face to face, ugly, scary, and terrifying. I got my ex-girlfriend up and out of bed. She saw it. I got my parents up. We all looked out the living room window and saw it in the yard, running across the yard and going across the fence, leaving. It's a good thing. A few days later, being the 4th of July, a dozen of us heard it roar, scream, coming from our east, over by the private pond. A lot of recordings on the internet are the same that I heard that night. I grew up listening to stories about them from my granddad and from friends who lived along the little wind on the reservation. Not to ever go to the river because of the hairy man. Friends and others would tell me that they'd encounter them near the old train tracks northeast of town, or camping near the town of Du Bois. I know what I saw, smelled, and heard. It wasn't no human. These creatures were Sasquatch, no doubt whatsoever. They are not mythical. They are very real, very intimidating, very calculating. I would never trust one. Especially after listening to the 411 missing reports. I do not venture off alone in nature by myself and still get nervous even if someone is with me. I don't care about those who mock me or anyone who has seen these creatures. I had encountered a group of 4 or 5 on a hunting trip. I was with a friend. We would hear them constantly. On the 3rd day, I left. I smelled another one at a turnoff at Stockton Lake in Missouri while on a group fishing trip 4 years ago, and had that bad gut feeling while I was on a friend's boat going 2 miles up the Little Sac River, also at Stockton. That was last year in July. So, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes that story. I hope you enjoy it. If you got questions, leave comments. We'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.